Hi, I'm Chad Lang, and in another video that I did called The Lord Will Forgive Whom He Forgives, I mentioned what I was discussing in that video, and the problem that I was having was only one of the barriers to my reactivation in the church. And so really that's just the tip of the iceberg, and we're just getting started here. So I'd like to discuss some other problems, and in this video I want to be talking about family dynamics and basically illustrating how belonging to a high demand group like Mormonism and being invested in the culture and the way of thinking and the general group mindset, people can and often do behave in ways where they're being completely ridiculous about their religious beliefs and their views on life in the world, and how they act and react, and how no one is allowed to point this out to them without you being the evil apostate unbeliever. And people in the world, or non-members, and there I'm using us versus them, insider versus outsider thinking, and I don't like using it. They see this behavior and they say, no, I don't think I want to be a religious person. And I'm going to be picking on my family quite a bit here, and they're going to be morally horrified by pretty much everything that I have to say, and that's just too bad, because I've often been in one-over-one relationships with these people. My family's been very patriarchal, and the church is very authoritarian, which is one of the cult traits that's mentioned in a book called Freedom of Mind by Stephen Hassan. The church is very excessively authority-based and seniority-based, and you're not supposed to criticize the leaders even if the criticism is true, according to Dallin H. Oaks, and that video is all over YouTube if you want to look it up. So anyways, I'm just going to kind of jump into what I'm saying here, and I'm kind of winging it. So my cousin Daniel is a very special person. Basically, he's the kind of person who wouldn't hurt a fly. He is very naive, and he's or used to be anyways, and very quick to be morally shocked. I don't know if you've ever seen an episode of The Simpsons in your life, but he's basically like Ned Flanders' boys. And that's the kind of personality he has, and nothing against him, and I think it's more to do with his personality rather to do than upbringing in the church, although I think a lot of soft-spoken, mild-mannered, meek males in the church are that way largely due to upbringing and social control. But I'll get into that either later or in another video. So anyways, when he's 8 years old, he needs to get baptized, because in Mormon theology, 8 is the age of accountability, and you have to be baptized, or God can't possibly forgive your sorry bacon without baptism. But he's afraid of the water, and I wasn't there, so I didn't see it, but apparently he more than likely made a big fuss about it and ran away and totally embarrassed his parents, and that's kind of understandable on that front. But just the way my family reacted about it is just like the concept of the kind of person he was, and that maybe he was too young for this to be going on, just totally did not even enter their minds. They're more sorrowful that he's not getting baptized when he's supposed to be. What if he were to die before he does get baptized? Then his soul's unforgivable. I just thought that was totally ridiculous. And I think I was like 14, or I might have been a bit younger, like 11 at the time. And it's like it was more reasonable for me thinking at the time that he can wait until he's 10 years old when he's more mature enough to handle what's going on, which is what ended up happening. I think they tried 2 attempts, and then he finally got baptized. And he ended up going on a mission. He's a devout member of the church, and he's very sad that I'm not. And apparently I inspired him to go on that mission. Don't ask me how I did it. because I'm very critical now. Anyways, my uncle, when I was 19, I think it was 18 or 19 years old, and I'm taking an institute, which is a class, a theology class, preparing to go on a mission, and the teacher is talking about the Book of Enoch and the Watchers, and he does mention that this isn't official church canon, but he is kind of talking about the first 7,000 years of an Adam and Eve view of human history, and kind of including them in that. And I was very fascinated by this stuff at the time. I thought theology class was amazing, and I totally believed it all. And so I'm talking about this very excitedly with my uncle when we're driving around in Cardston, and I was away from my family. I was living, with my dad's very Mormon family, and anyways, he just starts flipping out and going off on how dare Brother Zemp teach this and this, and say that it's canon, and somehow I guess in whatever it was I was talking about, I kind of the translation didn't get out that he did kind of preface what he was saying with a disclaimer. But in my family, once adults start flipping out, and it doesn't even matter if I'm 19 years old, once they start flipping out, children can no longer speak. And my Mormon family, only half my family's Mormon, my Mormon family was very quick to take offense at their thinking that their authority was being challenged. And they thought their authority was being challenged all the time over any kind of independent thought, or I didn't even know what I said 9 times out of 10. That was a problem for them. They were, and this was an ongoing problem in my life in my teenage years growing up, and the older I got, the worse it got. And by 19 years old, they basically just thought that I was challenging their authority without me even opening my mouth. And I was very heavily repressed as a teenager. I ended up falling away from the church at the turn of the century and having a big falling out with my family, and walked into adult life having severe chronic depression and emotional problems and authority issues, and going to the young single adult student wards, where they are also very authoritarian and very focused on seniority and talk down to the congregation, because in our 20s, early, mid, and late 20s, we are still too inexperienced to know what's going on in life, and the 40-year-old married adults know everything there is to know, and we need to listen to our leaders and blah 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 blah. So I was still being talked to like a teenager in my late 20s in these student congregations. That's how I felt about it. And again, you can't criticize what's going on or say boo edgewise without people telling you that you're the unrighteous person. I'm going to get into that later. So yeah, my uncle just totally flips out. And let's back up a bit. When I'm in grade 9, I'm watching this cartoon called Captain Planet, and in this particular episode was basically about don't have more children than the world can hold, and that human beings are breeding like rats and exhausting our resources. And so my dad totally flips out, and again, I can't get in a word in edgewise, and if I even try, I'm the bad person challenging his authority. And the Babylon is spreading evil messages into his home, and he's got to morally forbid me from watching the cartoon ever again. And at no time was it ever discussed, do I have a brain that's capable of filtering these messages and making judgment calls on whether or not I even accept this drivel as per what I'm being taught in the church? Do we have a conversation about it? No. It's always this reaction. And if Captain Planet was that much of a problem for those reasons, my parents should have just taken me right out of the public school system, because the left-wing drivel was all over the place. You know, I watched the cartoon now, Captain Planet. I think that it's rather funny that all the immigrants tell the one white dude that he's the one having too many kids. And you look at the way Canada is right now, and it's the white people who are not having very many children, and the people who come from other nations who are more traditional in their religions who are having large families. So there you go. I'm not trying to be racist. I can just see. That's all. So what does that tell you for how that social indoctrination has impacted things? So anyways, let's back up. I'm in grade 8. I'm in a sex education class where they're telling me that, it's Degrassi High. A 14-year-old girl can have a crush on her lesbian teacher. There's no sin in this. You know, and in grade 9, the teacher in this all happened in humanities classes, gives me an assignment to talk for 5 minutes in front of the class for a topic they pick on the fly. And the topic that they picked on the fly was, should gays be in the military? And that's what I had to talk about for 5 minutes on. So yeah, if Captain Planet was a problem, you guys should have homeschooled me, straight up. Because that's the indoctrination on the school system side. And I think both the church and the school systems are guilty of indoctrination. They're just on opposite sides of the fence. So anyways, I learned that by trying to criticize these, or having concerns about these things, and expressing these concerns, that the devil is working on me, apparently. My parents used to sit around at the dinner table and criticize people for not being righteous enough. They'd criticize the bishop or branch president across the street for going to Utah as an illegal alien, and judged him for that. And they were judging people left, right, and center until I left their home. And I never did like it. And I remember one time being in grade 12, just throwing my fork down and being like, I don't want to listen to this crap anymore. You know. And when I was 11, I expressed to a primary teacher that I was having some concerns with how judgmental a lot of members seem to be, and how they seem to have a lot of bias, and they're quick to morally condemn. And he told me that the devil's working on me, and I have one of these personalities that's especially vulnerable to Satan. And I was a good kid when I was 11. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I wanted to live the religion. I wanted to be obedient. I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to steal. I didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to kill. And actually, stealing very morally horrified me. And you're telling me that I'm emotionally vulnerable, like extra emotionally vulnerable to Satan, that I was born that way? Well, in this book, Freedom of Mind, that is a cult mind control tactic. Sorry, I did a 1.0 of this video. This is my second take. So, right there, point 5, you can pause it and read it. And it says, create a tightly controlled system with a closed system of logic where dissenters feel their questioning indicates something inherently wrong with them. And I learned later in life that this primary teacher's response is actually pretty normal and common in the church, and a lot of people say that to you as soon as they get wind of the fact that you're having any kind of difficulty with the church, with the society, with the culture, with participating in any of it at all. That's what they tell you, and I think it's disgusting. There's a bishop that I had who's talking about provocatively dressed women and how men are wired, and how these women don't know what they're doing to the minds of the men who see this provocatively dressed woman, and basically can't control their thoughts anymore. Their thoughts are running wild with all kinds of sinful, lustful thoughts, and they can't feel the spirit to do their home teaching lessons. The way he was talking, like very hurtfully and sorrowfully, like, they don't know what they're doing to them. You know, and it's just like, you're being absolutely insane. I actually like what Brett Weinstein had to say about the second male's reproductive strategy in porn and what he was getting into in there on the Joe Rogan interview that he did. So I recommend that one. And the bishop's only teaching what he's been trained to teach, and he's feeling about it the way he's been trained to feel by the church. And that's why he's being the way he is being about it. So that's what I have to say. He said in a different one that a sexual arousal outside of marriage is inappropriate. You tell that to every teenage boy with a boner, and of course they're going to feel tremendous guilt shame throughout their teenage lives because a sexual arousal outside of marriage is inappropriate. Jesus had to bleed from every pore for that. Like, the guilt tripping and the shaming is just phenomenal in that kind of atmosphere. And that's where I want to go with that. I think I had a couple other examples, but I can't quite remember. In response to my uncle talking about the book of Enoch, this here is the book of Enoch. And I intend to read this book, and I intend to take it with a grain of salt. And I also intend to take this book right here with the same grain of salt. And if you have a problem with me saying that, then all I have to say is that is exactly the attitude you deserve for being so stupid about it in the first place. And I say unto you, that is the attitude that a lot of members of the church deserve. So, with that, in closing, I'm going to wrap it up here. I am the Mouthy Mormon Metalhead. Have a nice life.